By providing space for constant evolution, we can all transform how we view ourselves and the world around us.
Thank you, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here with you all. My name is Silva. I'm a faculty member here at Laguna Blanca School. I'm also a yoga instructor here in Santa Barbara at Yoga Soup. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about how spirituality and education overlap. A little bit about how I got here. Before I get there, actually, let me tell you a little bit about spirituality. When we think about spirituality, we might think about things like yoga or meditation. We might think about mysticism or religion, crystals, all the things. But really, one thing that binds them all together is kind of the human search for meaning, right? Humans seeking to understand oneself and one's world a little bit better. And that's where I'm kind of coming from right now. And I've been in education basically my entire life. I worked as a cancer biologist before this at a university. Before that, I was a bio major as an undergraduate and minor in religious studies, which is what I ended up doing in my PhD program at UC Santa Barbara, where I encountered a text while I was working in the writing program called This Is Water. It was a commencement speech given by the late David Foster Wallace in 2005. And when I read it, I was blown away by it. It's still like my favorite piece of literature. It seems to me perfect in its literariness. And I used it as my teaching philosophy when I was teaching in the writing program. And then as I'm trying to figure out what I want to actually do my dissertation work on, I'm starting to realize that this is a spiritual text, that this text is talking about something that all of these other spiritual texts talk about, self-help books, all of this stuff. It's basically the same thing. And that sent me down a particular path where all of a sudden I'm starting to understand that my spiritual journey and my academic journey are kind of one and the same. And it starts off with this little parabolish story. He calls it a didactic parabolish little story, right? Where these two young fish are swimming along, and they happen to pass an older fish who's swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And then the two fish swim on for a little bit, and then one of them looks at the other and says, "What the hell is water?" It's a bit of a dad joke, since I think the one giggle in the audience came from a dad, but the point of it is to kind of look past the surface of it. It gets us to ask questions almost immediately, like how do fish not know what water is? And so to think about that a little bit more, like what does that mean for us, the people who are encountering this joke, this little story? Like, what is it to us that the water is to the fish? Well, the water to the fish is literally the world that they are constantly surrounded by. It's not just that, though. It's also the thing that they are constantly looking through, but rarely, if ever, looking at. And Wallace, in the speech, he has this beautiful moment where he kind of calls it his lens of self, or the lens of self. Like, we human beings are constantly filtering our experience in and through our lens of self. That's the thing that we construct meaning through. Our experiences get filtered through it, and we pump our meaning back out through it. But when I was doing my dissertation research, when I was doing my graduate research, I did the thing that all good historians are supposed to do, right? You got to go to an archive. You got to dig through boxes and books and all of this stuff. And so I found Wallace's early drafts of this particular speech. And so what I'm going to share with you is another story that he liked to tell. He called it, in his drafts, he called it his famous church story. And it goes a little something like this. There's an old man who, with his teenage son, live on a tiny little farm in the outskirts of a village somewhere in the middle of China. And they only have one horse, and the old man's too feeble to do the actual work, so it's mostly the son that does the work, using the horse, the single horse, to help plow the fields. And then one day, a massive storm rolls through the village, thunderstorm, lightning, the whole shebang, spooks the horse, and the horse escapes the corral. The next day, the whole village shows up. All the villagers come cursing his fate, cursing the gods, what bad luck this is. And the old man just looks at him and goes, good luck? Bad luck? Who knows? Storm passes. A couple days later, horse returns. Not just that, horse brings back a half dozen young wild horses. All of a sudden, what seemed like a bad thing now seems like an amazing thing. They now have 6 horses that they can help tame and do all the work on the farm. Well, a couple days after the son started actually doing the work of taming one of the horses, it bucks, throws him off, he falls on a rock, breaks his leg. Whole village shows up the next day. Oh my God, this is terrible. You don't have anybody to help you do this work. The old man just looks at him and goes, good luck, bad luck, who knows? Next week, Emperor's army comes through, conscripts all the young men who can fight in a war, takes them all away, but as they're passing the old man and his farm, they see the son, hobbled, they leave him. And you know where this is going, right? Good luck, bad luck, who knows? And Wallace's point, which he never published, right? This is not in the published version of This Is Water. Wallace's point here was that the villagers are like his mind, always evaluating things, always making narratives. But the old man is his spirit. The old man is the one who knows that he doesn't really know that much, and that what appears to us on the surface really isn't the deeper thing. It isn't the deeper truth that's actually there. And the question then becomes, like, how is any of that useful, especially to students? All right, what is the practical value of this? I think back to even today in this amazing panel that we've had, like Dino Ambrosi gave an amazing talk today on how your free time is your most valuable resource that gets exploited by social media companies. One spin on that I would put is if your lens of self is the thing that you're constantly looking and seeing through, well, the thing that's constantly looking through that, and rarely looking at it, that's your awareness. That is your most valuable capital. And how you pay attention is literally how you spend it, and everybody wants it. Everybody wants it. But if you can see the water, if you can look at your lens of self, if you could see the villagers in your mind and not be taken by them, because those villagers, they're easily hypnotized, as Mr. Pinsent said earlier today. But just be that spirit that's kind of right in the middle. You'll be better. For the students, right? Like, how many of you have ever said, oh, when the hell am I ever going to use the quadratic equation in my real life? When is that essay that I just wrote on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein going to be useful to me in my real life? Well, I'd invite you, I would suggest to you not to listen to those villagers in your mind. I would suggest to you that the right answer is who knows? You don't know yet. On the surface, these may seem like useless things. I offer you a different metaphor as well. You rarely ever hear an athlete say, oh, when the heck am I going to use that barbell or that dumbbell on the basketball court? The point isn't the thing. It isn't the content. It isn't the skill, right? The long game of education is choosing how it is that you think about that experience of yours in school. Wallace's point, and the point of so much spiritual knowledge, is that you do get to choose how you think about things. You do get to choose which of the thoughts that pass by your critical, simple awareness are the ones that you are going to give that precious resource of yours, that most valuable of capital, to. I wake up every day, and the villagers in my mind are there, and they're loud. And a lot of the days, they're kind of mean. They tell me that this is good or this is bad. They anticipate things. They set unrealistic expectations for me. I do my best to sit with that spirit. And it doesn't have to be an old farmer, right? It could be a young superhero or a young superheroine. It could be a beautiful, badass, inspirational drag performer. It could be whatever it needs to be for you. But I try and hang with that spirit. And I get ready, and I put on the owl outfit, and I come to work, and I get to hang out with all of you fine people. And it's a true blessing to be able to kind of let my spirit talk through the villagers in my head, through the villagers in my students' head, and maybe try and inspire the spirit to change the tune that those villagers sing, both in my head and in those of my students. Which is why, when I say it, I really do mean it. It is a privilege and a pleasure just to be in your presence, good people. And I thank you all so much for having me here today.